My stepmother compelled my father to force me to terminate my relationship with my girlfriend for the sake of my stepbrother. Years later, after I had moved out, he attributed the downfall of his life to me. I, a 32-year-old male, have maintained zero communication with my father's side of the family for the last 12 years, and it all originates from his second marriage. My parents separated when I was approximately 10 years old, citing a lack of romantic feelings. At 32, I comprehend this concept, but as a child, I was shocked and heartbroken. Consequently, I often acted out towards my parents, and we participated in family therapy sessions. However, it appeared that only my mother was endeavoring to understand my perspective, while my father maintained a rigid philosophy of simply accepting life's circumstances. As a result, my bond with my mother was stronger than with my father, and I only resided with him for brief periods. However, at 14, my mother tragically passed away in an accident, compelling me to live with my father. Those were arguably the most sorrowful days of my existence, exacerbated by the fact that I was virtually alone in my grief. My father had been romantically involved with Beth, 49 female, for several years, and they had become betrothed around the time of my mother's death. My father prioritized his future with Beth over his history with my mother, exhibiting no outward signs of mourning or sorrow. This further isolated me as a teenager. Beth was also challenging during this period, as I was an unforeseen addition to their household. She demanded I adhere to her regulations and even attempted to assume a maternal role. I was understandably resistant to this, as she could not conceivably replace my mother in such a short time. Moreover, she consistently showed preference for her son from a previous relationship, Josh, 30 male. In classic, overbearing parental fashion, she tried to intervene, securing him a superior position on the football squad, a more prominent part in the school theater production, and so forth. To his credit, Josh frequently rebuked his mother for this conduct, but she persisted in acting like a smothering parent. Regardless of his outrage at her actions, he continued to reap the rewards of her influence. Thus, my adolescent years were fraught with difficulty, coping with the loss of my mother, my subservient father who never criticized Beth, and a stepbrother who always displayed awkwardness around me. I understood that I needed to remain discreet and depart after completing college. I ultimately enrolled at UNCC, which was located in my home state. To conserve funds, I continued to reside with my father and his family. This arrangement was mutually agreed upon by my father and Beth, and I was not a freeloader. I contributed a modest amount for rent and assisted with grocery expenses. However, tensions escalated significantly when I began a romantic relationship with Laura, 31 female, during my university years. I often brought her to the house, introduced her to the family, and it became evident that Josh harbored romantic feelings for her. I disapproved of this and privately cautioned him to cease his unsettling behavior regarding Laura, but it was apparent he remained infatuated. Initially, I believed it was a fleeting infatuation, but he had fallen deeply. He was experiencing academic decline, neglecting his SAT preparation, and generally behaving like a lovesick adolescent. Honestly, it was not my concern. I had attempted to be the mature older sibling by refraining from inviting my girlfriend over, enduring the fact that he was smitten with her and making no effort to conceal it. He failed to comprehend, and likely did not desire to. From what I later learned, Beth had confronted her son due to his peculiar behavior, and he had confided all his romantic troubles to her. Beth, after some mental gymnastics, concluded that I was somehow accountable for Josh's predicament and directed my father to deliver an ultimatum. My father summoned me one day and stated, "We had an understanding that you would reside with us throughout your college education, but a situation has arisen. Beth and I feel you are distracting Josh with your pursuits and the companions you invite. Consequently, we must renegotiate our arrangement. Upon hearing this, I was baffled. Without knowing the full context, I presumed he was referring to my friends who occasionally visited to play Wii games, or that I was playing music excessively late at night. I was clueless, so I inquired, "What do you mean, Dad? Are my friends negatively impacting Josh? I assure you, we haven't introduced him to anything inappropriate, and we generally maintain our distance, don't we?" He responded, "Yes, but that's not my point, OP. I believe we both recognize that Josh possesses intense feelings for Laura. We were contemplating whether you could dissolve your relationship with her to preserve familial harmony. We don't believe a romantic interest should supersede your brother's well-being, correct?" I burst into laughter upon hearing this. It was the most absurd proposition I had ever encountered. Still laughing, I replied, "Certainly, Dad. Why don't I terminate a wonderful relationship because your son is incapable of accepting rejection? I've already informed him on multiple occasions that he makes Laura uneasy, and I rarely invite her over now. What's the real issue?" I recognized he was avoiding the core issue, but I began to suspect that Josh had adopted an extreme if I can't have her, nobody can mentality. Beth had undoubtedly implored my father to discuss this with me, both to appease her son and to ensure he did not squander further time on this particular girl. I am uncertain how they anticipated I would simply acquiesce to this. It devolved into a substantial argument, and I resolved to stay with Laura and vacate the premises. I packed my belongings one day and departed, changing my mobile number in the process. I temporarily resided at a friend's apartment for a short while before cohabitating with my then girlfriend. Luckily, I was attending university on a scholarship, and my main hurdles were covering accommodation and utility costs, but I worked diligently and took on extra shifts to manage. At that juncture, all connections with my family were severed, and the only individuals I now consider family are a select few relatives on my mother's side. It's been a dozen years since that time, and interestingly, Laura and I have wed. We are both content with our careers and lifestyles. In fact, we recently acquired our first house and are hoping to conceive a child. I genuinely believe that separating myself from my dysfunctional family was the most beneficial decision I ever undertook. However, a few days prior, an individual appeared at my residence, causing me to reevaluate my past. Josh had discovered my address and visited, stating he urgently needed to converse with me. I was too taken aback to respond, so I calmly invited him inside. We briefly discussed our lives once he had composed himself, but he already possessed the general outline of my current circumstances, which he had apparently gleaned from online platforms. Then, he disclosed the reason for his visit. He divulged considerable details about his fixation on Laura, including his mother's involvement. However, he also asserted that he never intended for me to move out. That was a scheme devised solely by Beth. He added that, after my departure, Mom seemed almost glad I was gone, and the household environment became quite frigid and unsettling for him. The three of them relocated out of state a few months after I left, a fact I was oblivious to. Josh was unsure how to reach me at that time. Throughout this period, he had been harboring remorse about my reaction, laughing at the whole situation, and had overcome his romantic interest in Laura. Surprisingly, due to his fragile emotional state, he associated with a negative peer group in university and ultimately withdrew. The domestic situation was also deplorable. His mother was distressed by his lack of drive and accomplishment, but she never troubled herself to ascertain the source of his unhappiness. This eventually compelled him to leave home after 10 years, and he has been drifting from location to location ever since, undertaking temporary employment and traveling by hitchhiking. He approached me, requesting assistance in establishing himself in this area, possibly by facilitating his entry into my workplace. This would be challenging for someone lacking a degree or equivalent credentials, as I explicitly stated. But Josh maintained that I owed him this for deserting him with our dysfunctional family. He asserted that, despite our estrangement, we remained siblings. He departed approximately an hour ago. As I compose this, and I am experiencing conflicting emotions. I do not believe I am indebted to him, yet it is distressing to witness his current state. I discussed the matter with Laura, and she prefers to maintain zero contact with all members of my paternal family, including Josh. However, she believes we should offer him some form of support. Would I be considered the a-hole, WWIBTA, if I ceased interaction with my stepbrother? Update 1. Based on advice received, I believe it is preferable to offer Josh temporary accommodation and motivate him to seek employment independently. I am uncertain if we will ever cultivate a meaningful friendship, but you are correct. I am not obligated to compensate for his emotional distress. I acted in my own best interest. Update 2. After several months, Josh is thriving in our town. He has undergone a significant transformation from his former self and has commenced employment as a junior manager at the local Walmart. The financial assistance we provided has been advantageous, and he is attending evening classes to obtain a degree. Honestly, observing his progress encourages me to become more involved in his life, but I struggle to reconcile the notion that he believes I owe him something for relocating and causing him distress. I discussed this with my relatives, and they suggested a direct conversation with him. Update 3. I confronted Josh about why he should not anticipate anything from me. However, I believe he has developed into a commendable individual deserving of my affection. It required some time for him to grasp the subtleties, but he ultimately apologized for the undue burden and expressed appreciation for the assistance. Laura has also softened her stance towards him, as he privately apologized for his prior questionable conduct. I anticipate he will be welcome in our home henceforth. I cannot say the same for his mother and father. We both harbor resentment towards them. Not the a-hole, NTA, but in my view, neither is Josh currently. Yes, he was infatuated with Laura, but Beth is the true antagonist for enabling such behavior, NTA. But I would advise continued caution with your brother, not because he is engaging in any wrongdoing, but because both of you must collaboratively process the trauma inflicted by your narcissistic parents. I also suspect that someone like Beth is challenging to sever ties with completely. So, is Josh in no contact, NC, with them presently? Now, onto the subsequent narrative. Story 2. My closest friend's baby shower devolved into a chaotic situation when she disclosed that my husband was the biological father. The subsequent events were shocking to all. Yesterday, my husband, 32 Enyo, and I, 30F, attended my best friend Sarah's, 30F, baby shower. Sarah and I had maintained a close friendship since our university days. We initially became roommates, but our bond solidified as we discovered our mutual appreciation for similar genres of music. We attended concerts together and accumulated countless memories. By our final year of college, we were virtually inseparable, spending summers together at each other's residences whenever feasible. After completing our education, we embarked on divergent career paths. While I secured a highly coveted position at a prominent law firm, my ideal career, Sarah remained undecided about pursuing traditional employment. Instead, she opted to explore social media as a potential revenue stream. Despite our vastly differing schedules, we prioritized dedicating weekends to each other. We consistently found opportunities to connect, whether it was embarking on a hike, exploring a new culinary establishment, enjoying drinks, or simply relaxing at home and viewing films. I initially encountered Michael during one of our social outings. He was attending a friend's pre-wedding celebration, and the instant I observed him, I sensed he was my destined partner. Although we frequently debate who experienced love at first sight, the reality is that we both developed profound feelings that very evening. Fortunately, we have enjoyed a blissful marriage for 5 years, and it has been nothing short of perfect. I often express to Sarah my gratitude for her invitation to the pub that night. Otherwise, I would not have met my wonderful partner. Sarah remained unattached for a few years after my wedding, before encountering her current spouse, Mark, and commemorating their second wedding anniversary this year. 3 months prior, Sarah revealed her pregnancy, and I was ecstatic. I eagerly anticipated witnessing my closest companion embark on this new phase of her life and embrace her child soon. I was deeply touched when Sarah designated me as the baby's godmother and entrusted me with the responsibility of orchestrating her baby shower. After considering various themes, we decided on yellow, Sarah's preferred color. Throughout the planning stages, I maintained consistent communication with the catering service to ensure seamless execution and the timely arrival of the cake. As luck would have it, I had collaborated with the caterer previously for my brother's nuptials, so collaborating with her again was effortless. On the day of the shower, we arrived prematurely to ensure everything was impeccable. Mark greeted us at the entrance and informed us that Sarah was still preparing. While setting up, I noticed that the cake was not positioned in the center of the table, as Sarah had specified. So I rectified it. Shortly thereafter, the attendees began to arrive, and I was thrilled to see several of our former university acquaintances. We had not seen each other in years, so we seized the opportunity to reconnect and share significant life developments. Sarah made her entrance, adorned in a vibrant yellow ensemble that complemented her baby shower's motif. Everyone offered their congratulations, and she beamed radiantly. As the event unfolded, we all gathered to partake in a delectable lunch. Everything appeared to be proceeding smoothly until Sarah requested everyone's attention. She rose, expressed her gratitude for our presence at her baby shower, then inhaled deeply and announced, "I am delighted to share that my husband, Mark, and I are anticipating our first child, and I have a very special person to acknowledge for that." Mark glanced at Sarah with a perplexed demeanor, attempting to comprehend the situation. Then, gesturing directly at my husband, Michael, she declared, "Everyone, I would like to present the father of our child." I nearly aspirated my meal. The room fell silent, and I could discern that everyone was astonished and uncertain how to react. My thoughts raced to decipher what was transpiring. My husband, who avoids attention and prefers a low profile, firmly grasped my hand beneath the table. I turned to observe him, and he appeared equally bewildered. All eyes were fixated on us in an unsettling and awkward hush. I glanced at Sarah, seeking clarification. To provide some background, my husband and I have been endeavoring to conceive for years, without success. Despite undergoing numerous examinations, we have been unable to achieve pregnancy due to personal medical circumstances. I have only confided in a select few family members and close confidants, including Sarah, about my challenges. My husband and I eventually accepted the possibility that we might not be able to conceive naturally. Instead of dwelling on this, we resolved to focus on our lives as a couple. Sarah's public declaration of my husband as the father of her child was a fabrication, but I could not help but be impacted by her words. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I struggled to maintain composure in front of everyone. Sarah suddenly burst into laughter and playfully nudged her husband, Mark, exclaiming, "I was merely jesting, everyone. This is purely a prank for my Instagram. I have strategically placed cameras throughout to capture all of your responses. As everyone looked around in confusion, I could not help but feel irritated with Sarah for subjecting us to such an emotional upheaval. I could not fathom that my best friend considered identifying my spouse as the father of her child to be amusing, particularly considering our past struggles. I turned to observe my spouse and noticed that his face was crimson. He was still clasping my hands, and I could sense his embarrassment. At that moment, although a few attendees chuckled nervously, the overall atmosphere in the room was strained. I observed that Sarah's husband, Mark, did not participate in the laughter. He appeared more distressed than entertained, and even extended an apology to my husband. Mark and my husband had developed a close friendship over the years, and I believe he felt sympathetic towards us at that moment. I did not wish to confront Sarah immediately and disrupt her baby shower. As she proceeded with the planned activities, I attempted to dispel the unease that had settled within me, but it lingered. After lunch, we engaged in a few games before unwrapping all the gifts. Sarah seemed to be the only one genuinely enjoying herself, interacting with guests and capturing photographs for social media. My husband had previously confided in me privately that he intended to depart after the disastrous meal, but I persuaded him to remain. I did not want the attendees to notice our abrupt departure, so I assured him I would address the matter with Sarah later. I suspect Mark was also uncomfortable continuing with the celebration, as he promptly stood up with a frustrated expression. He requested Sarah to step outside with him for a moment, and I sensed that a confrontation was imminent. We could all visually and audibly observe them as they conversed, and it became evident that Sarah's jest had created an uncomfortable atmosphere within the room. I observed as their discussion intensified, and Mark's gestures grew increasingly animated. As time passed, Mark's vocalizations amplified, and his remarks reverberated throughout the space. I am incredulous that you would perpetrate such an act. They are our most intimate companions, and this transcends a simple, innocuous joke. You transformed our baby shower into a farce and subjected me to humiliation before everyone. Sarah reiterated that she perceived it as a benign prank, but Mark was unyielding. He firmly instructed her to mature and refrain from uttering insensitive remarks, particularly as they were commemorating the impending arrival of their offspring. The room had descended into an uneasy silence. We could all distinctly hear their exchange. My husband could no longer tolerate the situation, so he arose and departed, stating he would await me in the vehicle. Although my heart ached for my friend, I recognized the depth of my husband's hurt and could not fault his decision to leave. Mark must have apprehended the severity of Sarah's actions as he witnessed my husband's exit. He glanced at Sarah and declared, "I am finished. I am finished with your childishness. We are finished. I will cherish this child, but I cannot remain with you for another moment." Upon hearing this, Sarah dissolved into tears, and Mark exited the gathering. We all exchanged bewildered glances, uncertain of the appropriate response. My heart was heavy for my dearest companion, but I knew my husband required my presence more urgently at that moment. I did not wish to approach Sarah following her agonizing conversation with Mark, so I, too, departed from the baby shower without bidding farewell. Upon arriving home, I observed the extent of my husband's distress. We could not fathom that Sarah had perpetrated such a cruel deception upon us. That evening, Mark sent us a text message expressing his remorse, stating he had no prior knowledge she would orchestrate such a ruse for a video, and was deeply sorry for the ordeal we had endured. We were relieved he contacted us, as we harbored no animosity towards him and fully comprehended his perspective. Regrettably, I awoke the following day to numerous messages from Sarah. She conveyed that she executed the prank due to the stress induced by her pregnancy and merely sought to create a viral video for her Instagram account. She asserted she failed to understand our displeasure and inquired why I departed without bidding adieu. Subsequently, she requested that I accompany her to her gynecological appointment later that day. Becoming increasingly agitated, I informed her that I did not find her joke remotely humorous. I conveyed that her actions were discourteous and had caused both my husband and me considerable discomfort. I further informed her that I required a period of separation from her and would be unable to escort her to her appointment. Sarah retaliated by characterizing me as a shitty friend for deserting her during such a delicate time. This message truly disturbed me. I could not believe she would utter such a statement simply because I required personal space. When I relayed Sarah's message to my husband, he was equally incensed. He advocated for avoiding interaction with her until she grasped the magnitude of her behavior. I resolved to send Sarah a final message, informing her that I would refrain from communicating with her until she offered an apology to both myself and my husband for her actions. I also unequivocally stated that if she attempted to publish the prank video, I would pursue legal recourse against her. Instead of apologizing, Sarah maintained that she did not believe she had committed any wrongdoing. She even insinuated that I harbored jealousy towards her due to her pregnancy. Upon reading her response, I was incredulous. This woman, who had been my closest confidant for over a decade, presumed I was envious of her. Despite my having exerted extraordinary efforts to provide her with the quintessential baby shower, Sarah assured me she would not upload the video, but she insisted that I disregard my emotions and support her during this challenging period. She stated that her husband had not returned home the previous night and that she needed my presence more than ever. As someone who avoids confrontation, I found myself in tears after digesting her insensitive messages, realizing I could not prolong this discussion. I made the arduous decision to block her without further communication. Now, I am experiencing conflicting emotions. A part of me regrets not being present for my pregnant best friend, but another part of me feels a sense of relief and even gratitude that her husband terminated their relationship following the stunt she orchestrated against us. Update 1. A week has elapsed since my last update, and significant events have transpired. First and foremost, I wish to emphasize that Sarah is not typically inclined towards practical jokes. It was an utter surprise when she executed this prank. I have known her for many years, and she has never exhibited a predisposition for perpetrating pranks on others. In any case, Mark was sincere about separating from Sarah. My spouse conversed with Mark over the weekend and learned that he is actively seeking a divorce attorney. Since that day, Sarah has been relentlessly calling and texting Mark, imploring him to return to her and overcome his emotions. However, Mark has completely disregarded her attempts at communication. She even resorted to accusing him of infidelity with me, which was utterly unforeseen. The reality is that Mark is simply despondent, that his marriage is dissolving because Sarah is progressively transforming into someone he no longer recognizes. Sarah has been unable to contact me directly since I blocked her. Instead, she left a lengthy message for my husband. She accused him of endeavoring to sabotage our friendship, even alleging that he is not much of a man because he cannot impregnate me. I was distressed when my husband presented me with the note. Returned from work yesterday. Until this point, I had attempted to disregard her abrupt shift in demeanor, attributing it to hormonal fluctuations associated with pregnancy. However, her disparaging comments directed at my spouse were unequivocally unacceptable. That was the moment I resolved to impart a lesson to her. I was responsible for overseeing both the baby shower arrangements and the baby registry. I had dedicated countless hours collaborating with Sarah, discussing her preferences, and meticulously curating a list of essential items for the baby. However, Sarah insisted on incorporating exorbitantly priced items onto the registry, articles that not all attendees could realistically afford. During the baby shower, I observed that while some guests adhered to the registry, others presented her with pragmatic gifts that were not listed but would nonetheless prove beneficial to a new mother. Sarah exhibited genuine displeasure regarding this. Initially, I had intended to personally gift her a selection of the high-priced items she desired. However, after she overstepped boundaries by insulting my husband, I promptly rescinded the order and expunged the baby registry to ensure her inaccessibility. If she now desired one, she would be compelled to initiate the process anew. Additionally, I received correspondence from the caterer concerning the baby shower a few days prior, but I was too preoccupied with the Sarah situation to respond. As a surprise offering to Sarah, I had previously remitted half of the catering service's booking fees and intended to settle the outstanding balance following the baby shower. However, considering the totality of events, I became sidetracked and entirely overlooked it. I contacted the caterer, elucidated the circumstances to Sarah, and informed her that, given the unfolding events, I would not be disbursing the remaining sum. The caterer was exceptionally gracious and advised me that because Sarah had engaged the catering service under her own name and had corresponded with them prior to the baby shower, the final invoice would be directed to Sarah rather than myself. I was gratified that I would not be expending additional funds on someone who had publicly denigrated us and persisted in inflicting harm through her vitriolic text messages. I also apprised my spouse of the situation, and he found it amusing. Although I had contemplated reaching out to Sarah in the preceding days, upon receiving that letter addressed to my husband, I realized I had surpassed the threshold of forgiveness. I am thankful to everyone who offered their support and assisted me in recognizing the detrimental nature of her conduct. In retrospect, I can recall numerous instances where she criticized me, but I never accorded them significant attention until now. Regardless, I intend to maintain a positive outlook and progress beyond this ordeal. I do not wish to squander further time or energy on her. Update: this woman is devoid of shame. Sarah dispatched an email to me several days after my communication with the caterer. The instant her name materialized in my inbox, I knew she was back with her. In the electronic communication, she accused me of parsimony for not covering the entirety of the food service expenses, despite her awareness of my financial capacity. She asserted that I had always exhibited arrogance due to my privileged upbringing. And then she expressed her satisfaction that I was unable to conceive. She proceeded to state that she had been exploiting me for years to facilitate her own life, then repeatedly referred to me as unattractive and insinuated that I was unworthy of my spouse. She further contended that my husband married me solely for my monetary resources, as I was too aesthetically displeasing to be with him. She then labeled me an exploiter for purportedly driving a wedge between her and her spouse. Throughout the email, she employed inflammatory profanity, essentially resorting to every derogatory term imaginable. I presented the email to my husband, who swiftly deleted it. Over the years, we have both exerted extraordinary efforts to assist this woman. We were present for her during periods of singlehood and distress following numerous romantic separations. We have included her on vacations with us and even defrayed the costs of her airfare and lodging on multiple occasions. My spouse had even aided Sarah's parents by renovating their residence and providing them with financial assistance some time ago. We had consistently treated her as family. Incensed, my husband immediately contacted Mark and extended an invitation for dinner to discuss the predicament. When Mark arrived, we presented him with the email, and his expression was one of utter disdain. He then shared text message exchanges from Sarah, wherein she employed similar profanity and even accused him of infidelity. We were profoundly shocked by the severity of the accusation, as it was not a matter to be casually bandied about or uttered in a fit of anger towards one's partner. It was challenging to conceive that my former best friend, from whom I had only recently distanced myself, had undergone such a drastic transformation. Mark informed us that he was in consultation with a reputable divorce attorney. Per his attorney's counsel, he refrained from responding to Sarah's texts, irrespective of their irrationality or cruelty, and instead preserved screenshots of all her communications. He also photographed the email she had sent me, intending to present it to his legal representative. Since I composed the initial post, I have received several direct messages, DMs, from individuals expressing concern for Sarah, speculating she may be experiencing neurological anomalies as a consequence of her abrupt behavioral shift. I would like to add that she has always exhibited temperamental tendencies, even during our university years. I witnessed her losing her composure and directing profanity towards others, even in public settings. Although I harbor significant doubts that this is a medical issue, my husband and I will nonetheless contact her parents regarding the circumstances. We intend to disclose everything to them and present all the messages and emails she has dispatched to us. If, subsequently, they believe there is a genuine ailment afflicting her, it is their prerogative to arrange for a medical evaluation. Despite everything, I do not intend to unblock her or respond. Her electronic mail. I have consistently exceeded expectations for this woman, and for her to persist in mistreating, demeaning, and disrespecting me is profoundly disheartening. I intend to consign this experience to the past and concentrate on relishing life with my spouse and our canine companions. The preceding few months have been an emotional whirlwind, to put it mildly. I trust everyone is experiencing a positive commencement to the new year, just as my husband and I are. We are presently in the Maldives, enjoying a well-deserved respite from our demanding professional lives. Considering the events of the past year, we elected to take a hiatus from work and de-stress. Thus far, we have spent our days unwinding on the shoreline and indulging in refreshing beverages at the resort. Update. Several of you have solicited an update, and as anticipated, Mark and Sarah have formally separated. The legal proceedings were contentious, with Mark's attorney presenting compelling evidence, as well as their previously established prenuptial agreement. Despite Sarah's and her legal counsel's best endeavors, they were unsuccessful in prevailing in the case. However, both parties have been mandated to formulate a co-parenting strategy in the best interests of their child. When we communicated with Sarah's parents regarding her unpredictable behavior, we learned that she was compelled to move back into their home, apparently due to her pregnancy and lack of substantial professional experience. She was incapable of sustaining herself independently for an extended period, relying solely on social media. She was left with no alternative but to return to her parental residence. I also discovered from our shared acquaintances that, following the catastrophic baby shower, everyone swiftly distanced themselves from her. No one desired to become entangled in her personal drama. Mark refrained from visiting Sarah after initiating divorce proceedings until she entered labor. He remained in the delivery room throughout the night to witness the birth of their daughter. He has since dedicated himself to caring for the infant, spending as much time with her as feasible, and providing financial support as stipulated. He continues to meet with my husband on weekends, whether to engage in a round of golf or share evening beverages. Sarah was obligated to remit the outstanding invoice for the baby shower caterer after he threatened legal intervention. Sarah has dispatched numerous emails to me, wherein she attributes her life's misfortunes to me. Despite her parents subjecting her to a battery of medical examinations, she is in perfect health. Consequently, there is no justification for her juvenile conduct. Hopefully, for the sake of her daughter, she will endeavor to reform and evolve into a more virtuous individual in the future. My husband and I did not permit this circumstance to adversely impact our joyous and robust marriage. We moved past it within a month and concentrated on our individual and professional pursuits. We continue to embark on Sunday outings, just as we did during the nascent stages of our relationship. When I gaze upon my husband, I still experience the same exhilaration and gratitude that I felt when we initially encountered each other. I am profoundly grateful to be sharing my life with him. I would also like to extend my empathy to all the couples who have conveyed their struggles with infertility. I want you to know that it is perfectly acceptable. Life unfolds in its own unique manner, and we must place our trust in the process. If you genuinely cherish your partner, there exist numerous alternative avenues to parenthood. However, my husband and I are content with each other's companionship and have resolved to spend the remainder of our lives joyfully together. Thank you for watching. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and activate the notification bell to remain informed about more astonishing real-life narratives unfolding around you.